are back talking about audio and how it plays into your social media efforts in your marketing programs. And we've got a mouthful this time. And I struggled with coming up with how we were going to address this issue, because I think that this is something, again, that's relevant to an overall program. It's something that is not necessarily in the heart of social media, but it's something we have to pay attention to, because it is relevant to our audience, and there are social networking and social media aspects to this. So we came up with episodic online repurposed audio content. And good gravy, that's an awful lot to say. It's a complicated way to say this is content that has been already created for another purpose somewhere on the internet and has been regenerated so that people can listen to it somewhere. For the most part, this content had already shown up on traditional radio. So we're talking about talk show hosts like maybe Al Franken, or if you listen to some of the Fox News broadcasts like Bill O'Reilly, things like that. They will have their shows at a regular time on the radio, and then typically either later on that day or the next day they will have recorded that program, encoded it for the internet, and released it either as a download off of a website or as a podcast. So that's all we're talking about. If you didn't catch Rush Limbaugh during the rush hour on the way to work, you can probably download his show on the way home. One other distinction about this genre is that typically, and in almost every case, what I'm referring to is shows from big media. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that these have to be nationally syndicated shows. Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, we've got, finally, after a decade, and it amazes me that some of these local markets take a while to catch on, but the local shows now repurpose the regular broadcasts that they have with the local personalities. Now, they don't do the entire shows. What they typically will do is take maybe 10 to 15 snippets, maybe one congruent interview with a guest, or maybe they've got a one topic that they'll cover for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then if you want to listen to the whole thing, you've got to sign up for a small monthly fee to be able to download content from every show every day. And even with the national shows, the fees are typically very inexpensive, like $9-10 a month. But I don't have any numbers on what the subscription rates are for those shows. It'd be interesting that if we knew that Rush Limbaugh, is he getting 1,000 people to sign up or 50,000 people? I have no clue. I would assume that it's a good revenue generator, and because of that, as advertisers, we want to look at ways that we can utilize this platform as well. Now, if you go through some of the websites for some of these larger shows, and particularly the really big shows, you're going to find all kinds of ways that you can interact with the user base. Now, we're obviously talking about a cross-section, age, gender, and geographically of the community. What we're looking at here typically with talk radio is that you're looking with folks that have different political, moral, and ethical values. So obviously a lot of these shows slant very extreme to the left or to the right. So depending again on what your product is, your product may easily cross over between both of those types of folks, or it may not. So we want to be cognizant of that and be focused on the audiences we're going after. Let's get to some of the encyclopedic definitions of what we're talking about here. This is repurposed content from big media. We're talking about an audio file or a series of file that are available via download or syndication, just like we would look at a blog or a podcast or a video podcast that you can download to a portable media player. And that's key to this also, that we want to make sure when we're talking about this content, for the most part, we're talking about content that a user can take with them and use it whenever they want to. The big difference with this and what we call traditional podcasts is that podcasts typically are distinguished from other media in the fact that, yeah, they're sitting on a blog type platform. They're able to be syndicated through RSS or something. But in this case, what I'm talking about when I talk about podcasts is podcasts are typically created for the internet as its primary platform. I'm not going to nitpick about whether or not Rush Limbaugh shows or Bill O'Reilly's or something from Air America or NPR is a podcast. I mean, they call them podcasts, that's fine. It's a really generally accepted term throughout the net, just like social media is. But the more we use these terms to cover all these different types of platforms, the terms themselves kind of start to lose some of their meaning. So for the purpose of these classes, we want to try to keep the definitions of these different terms fairly tight so we understand what we're talking about.